Welcome to Melbourne JFBM for November. We're a little bit scattered due to a few scheduling issues, but it's worth it. We'll get to it. So we'll just go through the basics. As usual, we've got our regular sponsors, People Bank for the building you sit in, and JetBrains for the opportunity to win a copy of IntelliJ. Probably the best Java IDE. If you ever used Eclipse, you'll agree with me. We're just going to do a few shout outs to other meetups, just other things we think could be interesting. Melbourne Raspberry Jam is fully on all the Raspberry Pi stuff. Recommend you go along if you're interested in the brief introduction that we give you tonight. The other thing is the virtual jug. It's being championed by
Simon Maple from the London Java User Group, and he works for Zero to make show reporting.
Yep, Simon Maple. So he's trying to get on to a virtual jug, which is pretty much what it sounds like. It's going to be an online presentation-based jug. Not meaning to replace us, obviously, but it's easier to get high-powered presentations if you don't have to worry about logistics of getting them to Australia. So we'll provide more details about that. I've just put it in there, but I think we'll put something on the meetup notes as we get more details.
Yeah, they've already got a meetup page themselves. So
Oh, they're on meetup.com?
yeah, they're already on meetup.
Easy.
So yeah, I think I tweeted. So if you go to the Melbourne being there, but I'll post another message.
And the other thing is, not actually another meetup, but Java 1, the talks are now available. So if you go to that URL, preferably not on Con's iPad later, you'll find all of the talks, or at least the best talks from Java 1. And I think there are videos as well as the slide decks from those. So if you're interested in what happened there, that's all there. A little bit of news. Yeah, 2013 is coming up in December, and there are some big names here, and these are just a few of them. If you go to the YAO website, Google it, it'll go through all of the different speakers. I think we've got a subset here of people as Java developers you'll be interested in. Charles Nutter, the JRuby guy, someone from the Disruptor, which is, what's that consulting firm?
They do lots of trading.
Yeah, they do high-speed stock trading. So if you're interested in sort of the bleeding edge of high-performance Java, that'll be a really good talk. And finally, if you want to go to the conference, I believe there's a conference and a workshop session. You can use the code MELB-JVM to get 15% off. Looks like something really worthwhile going to, and if you can get your work to pay for it, even better.
That Charles Nutter guy, do people take him seriously with a name like that? That's awkward.
He's a Ruby guy, so.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Alright, so tonight's meetup, we're going to start with a little bit of Raspberry Pi. Just before that, the pizzas have arrived, so we'll get you to grab some food.
Pizza pie.
Just while Andrew sets up, and then we'll go into the Lambda stuff that you've all been prepared for, and hopefully you're all ready to go into. So you should have those two projects running in an IDE that supports Java 8. And finally, next month's meetup is something good. So reserve your space early because it's good. You'll just have to trust me on that. And yeah, until next time, meetup ideas and enjoy your time.
Hi everyone. I'm just going to have a quick talk about a project I've been working on the side. So around about 5 to 10 minutes. I'm going to miss a lot of the detail in this. So I'm more than happy to talk about this after we finish our talks tonight. I want to talk to you about a project I was working on recently for a client. And I call this project Modlog. It is a Java program that runs on the Raspberry Pi. Ta-da! That's actually connected via USB RS-232 to a submeter, which I had supplied to me. Now, what this project's actually going to be doing for us is polling the meter every 10 minutes to get data related to active power consumption, power supply, blah, 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 blah. I'm not an electrics person. And log it into a database, which you could then log into the Raspberry Pi and access as a CSV or poll live data every second. So I had the project up and running, and I was going to show you a demo all, but I've accidentally destroyed the partition on that SD card, so I don't really have that much of a demo. But what I was really hoping to talk about anyway was the libraries involved in this project, because before this project I wasn't really a libraries person, and having forced to use Jetty and Derby and other bits and pieces to fill in major gaps, it really helped me out. I mean, have a look around. There's so many things available on open source licenses that you could just include in your commercial project, and half your work is done. So the agenda of this quick talk is just a quick overview of the stack, of the software stack inside my program, and then I'll discuss just a few of the libraries. I'll glaze over a few of the libraries just because I found them really useful, and you might want to keep an eye out for them. And then, yes, demo question mark. Yeah, it's not going to happen. So, when you get this thing up and running, well, I've got it set up so you just plug in the power, and it all just starts up by itself, initializes the database, starts up with web server, and it's ready to go. I've got two main interfaces. A web interface that's hosted by Jetty. And that's where a user can log in and choose which data they want to navigate to a page outputting the data they want to see, and also download CSV data represented as in single column for the date, single column for the value at that date time. The other interface is for Modbus, where I've grabbed another library that will communicate over USB, over RS-232, to the submeter, and then just poll data from there every 10 minutes or every second if you're directly polling it, if you're viewing it through the web. Inside, we've just got a database for storing all the data in a very agnostic format, and there's some XML configuration for loading information about the meter, information about how to connect to the meter from an XML file. And that was just cool because I didn't write any XML to get in, or I didn't write any marshalling or unmarshalling stuff to get any of this working. It's just all annotations attached to my Java objects. If you're not using annotations, they're cool. Right. So the first interface I'll go through, the Modbus interface. I'm using a library called JAMod, and if anyone's into smart metering or sub-metering, this is an excellent open source library available to you that you can use to just poll a meter connected, either directly or over the internet, and do any number of read-write operations to get the state or to set it up, things like that. Now, the meter itself is set up as a slave, so I will be polling it in order for it to respond with information about the state. But the library also allows you to create your own meter implementation if you really wanted to, which could be cool. I mean, look, the Raspberry Pi's got GPO pins. I'm sure you could do something fun with that. Requires a Java comms API, which under a Linux environment just meant, open up my package manager, ask for RTX, librtx for Java, done. And that allowed me to start communicating with the Modbus media and get some data from it. Now, the user interface, I'm especially fond of Jetty because Jetty allows you to start up a program and then start up a web server in what's called an embedded web server. So if you've used something like Tomcat before, Tomcat kind of requires you to, Tomcat would normally require you to set up the large Tomcat container and then deploy an app to inside Tomcat, right? So you've got to look after Tomcat state and then make sure your app can successfully deploy or be active inside there. Jetty allows me to run it in embedded mode almost by default. So I start my program, which starts up a Jetty server inside it, so I don't have to worry about the state of that. It's just in sync with my program. To get my web pages out very easily, I use a library called FreeMarker, which is able to grab templates, HTML templates that are sitting on the Pi's hard drive, and then say format it with data coming in about the data related to the meters and the points of action monitoring, and just good for rendering. Because otherwise I'd be, being like system.out.println HTML, system.out.println body. You don't want to do that. And OpenCSV, it's an honorable mention purely because I couldn't be bothered, writing syntactically correct CSV data from a database. So this is an absolutely tiny library, easy to use license, easy to grab. Right, next, database. Derby really impressed me because similarly to Jesse, I can run it as an embedded database. So I just start up my program and using JDBC, I can connect to Derby and just tell it to initialize right out of the box. If I delete all the files related to my database, I can just ask Derby to initialize itself, and it's ready to go within 20 seconds. So that really helped me out. And by default, it seems to store your files relative to your project path. So instead of needing to be set up on the machine itself, I can just copy my jar, copy my program's jar to another PC, and start the program. It creates its own database directory, ready to go, and I've got a fully functioning SQL database right there. To communicate with the database, you may know of an ORM solution like Hibernate or Spring Data. I use something called ORM Lite, which is a really simple and easy to use persistence package. And like something like Hibernate, allowed me to just put annotations in my classes to say, right, this is this sort of field, it has this sort of name in the database, this particular entity has this name, blah 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 blah. But one of the more effective parts of this was I was actually able to throw the class at the database directly and have it completely initialize the table just based on the class alone. So again, this helped me start from a completely null state and get the system up and running in a couple minutes flat. I think that's all I have for my slides right now. There are the libraries I used in my project, and if you've got some time later on, I'm happy to go through some more of the project with you. Especially, I know some people might be more interested about how this particular set of communications work, but I'll stop badgering you now and let's go on with the show.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone for their patience and sticking with us, especially on such a sunny afternoon. I'm going to just try and run through this really quickly, and just got a few different goals to get you to basically have a go with using Lambdas. Lambdas is probably the most important feature coming to Java, and probably the only thing that it's been languishing compared to other more serious platforms for some time. So the Java 8 release will be March next year. For those who were here last time, I did go through a little bit of a demo, and so I think most of you were here. The basics that I went through last time were some stuff about default methods and refactoring in the IDE, and so some of that. So if you weren't here, it doesn't matter, we'll go through it again. A lot of this talk will just be me kind of talking very abstractly about this kind of stuff, and just more playing than me talking. So if there's any questions, feel free to jump in and go from there. So tonight I'm just going to talk about my Lambda journey, which is probably very similar to your Lambda journey. You'll see what I mean in a sec. The setup, just how tonight's going to run. We've pretty much established all the rules. Does everyone know where the toilets are? Everyone is new. There's just around the back there. Beer, go and help yourself. There's still plenty of pizza left, so feel free to wander in and out while we're doing this. And then your first Lambda syntax, I suppose, for those who weren't here last week. So I'm going to talk about Lambda syntax, collections, streams, and default methods. And then for each of those things, we're going to do some exercises after the end of each one. And then towards the end, what I'd like to do is just get your feedback about how you feel about the new language features, and what you liked and didn't like, and we can wrap up with that. This is my history as a Java developer. I started off as an ape, and then as a basically Java dev out of uni, or still studying at uni, and I was first thing you're exposed to, you write a Swing app, and you have to start doing anonymous inner classes. You start using Hibernate as the command pattern, so using anonymous inner classes there. If you do any threads, you use anonymous inner classes there as well. So basically declaring a class within a class, and you do this a lot in Java, and it's a key thing to writing code where you don't have to pass a lot of stuff around. So the next thing where I got exposed to Lambdas was through Groovy, and Groovy comes with closures out of the box. So it's got a very nice interrupt with that, and you can basically define Java classes on the fly. Basically define a map as a map of method names to functions, and define that as whatever interface you're trying to implement. That was quite freeing, and like, oh, good, we've got closures in Java. It was really fantastic. And then went back to Java for a long time. And so there was, but while we were using Java, there's also this other thing called JavaScript, and of course everyone was starting to do a lot of serious web apps, and it wasn't anymore just about this little thing to make sure you don't send a request off when no one's filled in a form field. So JavaScript with a bit of jQuery callbacks, and that was the other aspect of this, other disconnected functional thing. And then finally, they announced Java 8, and Oracle had gotten their act together and got going with the JSRs. So basically, as part of any new JSR on the Oracle platform, you've got to have a public mailing list and public wiki and release builds. And so that's what they did. And Brian Getz, who's the lead architect on Lambdas, he released this document last year called State of the Lambda, where he just basically talks about this is our design goals, this is how we'd want to look, make Lambdas look in the Java language. So that was out for ages, and sort of got a little bit of interest, and just continually building up from there. And then Java 1 just recently in September, there was a lot of sessions about Lambdas. So that's why we're here today. I'm basically plugging what I've learnt through there, for benefit of you guys. And then when Java 8 does come out next year, you'll be very much ahead of the pack. We also, we've got a bit of space, obviously, so if you feel like you want to go into the tables in the next room, there's the stools in front of the window, and whatever else. And as I said, just feel free to go back and forth and get pizza. I think everyone's got the code now, which is fantastic, and IDEs. We'll go through and run in the Lambda tutorial project the base test method. And just, if you get stuck, get in touch with one of us and we'll come around. Just help each other out and ask questions. So there's two sources for tonight's tutorials. The first one is the London Java community, they're very actively involved in Adopt-a-JSR for Lambdas, and so they basically wrote a series of tutorials. So that's the one that's on GitHub, and that's a really good one. I think that's probably, given the time we've got, we'll probably just get through that one. But there is another one which gets more into the Streams API and a bit more detail. So if you do find yourself getting a bit ahead and you want to have a crack at that one, you're certainly more than welcome to. Just a quick note about the build. So we're using build 1.14 came out yesterday. But you'll be fine if you're on anything from build 109 up. I just found out from a few people here today that if you're using build 1.14, there's a substream method? Yeah, and that substream method's been taken out of the JDK. So this is a fun thing about using early access previews. So if you get a compiler message about the second, so about this one here, that's why I just comment out that substream thing. But we probably won't get to it tonight, but if we do, just keep that in mind. Other than that, the builds get updated quite frequently, so you can just always I think I've been downloading them every single week since Java 1 finished, so they've been pretty active in getting those out. And finally, just a show of hands, who's using NetBeans? Yeah, 1, 2. And are you active NetBeans users, or are you just doing it for tonight?
Usually use it.
Yeah, usually use it. What about you guys? Yeah. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so I'll jump straight into it. So as I was talking about before, inner classes, this is just a framework I made up on the fly, but it's pretty much the pattern for handling a button click. So you've got this thing called a toggle button, and then as part of my setup of the button, I want to say what will happen when someone clicks the button. And I got this block of code, say a click handler or a click listener, whereby if when you click the button, this block of code here will run. It's just one line, but I've got to do all this boilerplate stuff to just declare it, and it doesn't really add any value. So what happens? So that's obviously really noisy. The very first cut of Lambdas lets you do this and basically just take out, just jump back for those to see, the click listener, so the class name, the method, and basically you're just left with the parameter and the actual call, what you want to have happen. And it's basically just this arrow syntax, so you've got the parameters to that method and the method body inside of it. And then you can go one step further, and then you can just because it's only one method, you can take out that those braces as well, so you don't need to have them there. So it becomes a lot smaller, and obviously on a normal desktop screen with a normal size font, that obviously becomes a lot easier to read and handle.
I think you can get rid of the type as well.
Yes, you can as well. So the click event,
it's pretty intuitive in that it's type safe. So you can just have CE, arrow, and then the rest, and it'll happily compile if you're really trying to save your keystrokes.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's a good point. So any questions so far on that? No, we're all good.
Is it like the anonymous functions in Scala?
I don't know I haven't done Scala in a while, so
It's similar, yeah. So it's because you never used to have function variables in Java, and so instead of that, you can use these. And you'll see it a bit later. You can also refer to existing functions as well as the new ones that you declare like this.
all right. So the other first neat thing that you get out of this as well, in Java 5 we have this really nice colon syntax over here for iterating through lists of things, and in this simple example we're just basically printing out the people who are over 18, and basically we don't have to think about it. Like before that there was iterators, so I apologise for the colour, but basically you'd get an iterable and then basically iterate over it, get your thing and then do something to it, and you'd basically be telling your program how you wanted to navigate through the list. And it's just fine if you wanted to go one thing at a time, which is what most people just thought in sequentially. But as we get to new computers with multiple cores, perhaps maybe we don't care. Like maybe we want to have two things going at once, or take more advantage of different things happening. And so with this syntax, it's a lot of boilerplate where the only thing we really care about is that last line. We want to do something, and the rest is all just noise. So what, as a convenience method on any collection, you've now got this for each method. And so for each, again, just takes a closure, or a Lambda, I should say, and they're using the syntax where the object, they don't have to declare the type, it's going to be inferred from the list. So people was a list of people, object would be person, and yeah, the next shortcut that you get after that is that you've got, basically you're always just doing this single method call, right? So you're always going object, do something, object, calling something on it. And if you've got this syntax, you've got this shorthand form called a method reference. So it's basically just doing the same thing as that. And what you'll find when you start doing the exercises, especially in IntelliJ, I'm pretty sure NetBeans does it as well, is you've got a helper pointing up going, hey, do you want to make this a method reference to make it more shorthand? So it won't let you get very far without just keep starting to harass you about that stuff. All right, so Domini.
Parentheses. Is it mandatory to have Bosch in parentheses? Could it be just Bosch?
No, it's so you do need them. It is mandatory.
Syntax.
Yeah, so that's part of the syntax. Yeah, it's it's a bit weird coming from anything else, Grovey or Scala, but it's it's hey, it's Java. Like, it's not going to be like perfect. And I think there's probably a good reason as to why the compiler needs it to be in params, but that's what they did. I'm sure that they would have done it without otherwise.